This show is about sharing the profound stories of others who've turned their lemons to lemonade, and about how you can navigate your own struggles by understanding how others have navigated theirs. As I continue to search for my own truth, I will share the incredible stories of the people that cross my path, with the hope that you find inspiration, courage, and peace along your own journey to make the best lemonade your life has to offer. This is Life and Lemonade. Welcome, guys. I am about to give you, I think, one of the most inspirational stories that I've had the privilege of coming across. I'm here with Marlon Peterson, who is a very special guest to me because he has been unknowingly such an inspiration in my life for like the last 3 years. I think I met him 3 years ago sailing down the islands in Trinidad and Tobago. That's about 3 years ago, right?
Yeah, 3 years ago.
And what was interesting is that I saw a number on he has a tattoo on his hand with a number on it. And I remember asking him what the number meant, and he didn't tell me. And then I asked again in another clever way, and he still didn't tell me. And I think by the third time, he told me what it was. And I knew in that moment that I had to know more. He's a writer, human justice advocate, and he is the owner of a podcast called Decarcerated, which focuses on the reform of lives of people who have been incarcerated, like himself. 20 years ago, Marlon was incarcerated for a crime he committed at 19 years old.
19.
At 19 years old, he spent 10 years in prison, and 10 years and what's the number? 10 years.
10 years, 2 months, 7 days.
10 years, yeah. 10 years, 2 months, 7 days. That's the tattoo. And so it's been a great pleasure and a great inspiration to hear his story, to understand where he's come from, to understand where he's going, to understand what he is putting out into the world. I want to thank you for being here, for agreeing to do this, but more importantly for your work and your commitment to your work. You've come a far way, and I think always that has to be acknowledged. You know, the choice that we make every single day to wake up and do good despite the circumstances is what's important. And the introduction I just gave, you know, is your entire story. It's your bio. You Google it, you find it everywhere. But does it affect you that, you know, that every single time you have to be introduced, you have to talk about a crime you committed? Does that affect you?
I mean, yeah, of course it does. First, thanks for to speak with me and interview me. I appreciate that. And of course, I think it affects because I have to go back to a certain place, depending on the level of the conversation. I have to go to a certain place and remember certain things, pictures, people, scents, smells, what have you. In that way, it does bother me, but I do think also what allows me to get through it is like there's a purpose behind it. So for me, I focus on my story. Like, you do it for the love, you don't do it for the likes. Yeah. You know, for me, I do it for the love, not just people to love me, but because I love people.
Right.
So I understand the purpose in it. I also understand that, like, you know, I've had a particular set of experiences in my life, and for a reason.
Right.
And part of the reason what I've come to understand is to be able to share it in a way that uplifts other people and people who have similar experiences, but not only incarceration, at prison and whatnot, but people who come from tough spots, and whether the tough spots were caused by them or brought onto them, or a mixture of both, right? I think, you know, to be a vessel of inspiration, like I'm a vessel. And I'm thankful that I've been able to understand that my experiences come with a reason and a purpose. So
I want to start with, who was Marlon as a kid growing up? Like 7, 8 years old. What was your personality like? What was your interests like?
I was a Jehovah's Witness. Wow. I was a Jehovah's Witness. I mean, my father's a Jehovah's Witness, and I was the one out of 3 of us. I'm the youngest, and I was the one that sort of latched onto it.
Right.
And also he became a witness when I was born, like right before I was born too.
Right.
And my sons are 11 and 8 years older than me. So so as a 7-year-old kid, I was Jehovah's Witness. Saturday and Sunday morning, I'm out with my father knocking on doors, watch Child Awake magazines, and I was fully aware. Like I wasn't just like repeating something by rote. You know, I was aware. Like I at a 7-8-year-old understanding of like the Bible and you know, and the doctrines of Jehovah's Witnesses. So I was fully aware of it. Smart kid. I mean, I did well in school at the time. Very shy, ridiculously shy. Watched a lot of TV. I watched TV all day, anytime I could. Cartoons and whatnot. I mean, I think I was growing up where I was at in Brooklyn.
And you grew up in Crown Heights, yeah.
Crown Heights, yeah, Notion Avenue. I wasn't like in tune with like the cool, like what was like cool. So, you know, people listening to hip hop at the time. I didn't grow up in a household with hip hop and West Indian, so you know, most of my friends in school don't know about Bali and Byron and all those sort of things. So
Marlon is of Trinidadian descent.
You can tell, right? So I mean, I'm born in America, so I'm an American kid, but don't necessarily fit into like the American kid experience in a sense, because my parents were really intentional about raising us in a household where we felt like we were in Trinidad almost.
Right.
But I was definitely a nerd. I was a dweeb.
Okay, so then what were you like as a teenager? Because like by 16, 17, what?
Yeah, I mean, I went from being like a perennial honor roll student, valedictorian, all that.
Wow, valedictorian, wow.
Yeah. I mean, in grade school, I was in 6th grade class. I was a valedictorian. Went to Gifted and Talented junior high school, honor roll there. And then by the time I got to high school, though, I had sort of stayed, you know, slowly drifted away from like the Kingdom Hall, Jehovah's Witnesses. I still would excel in school in a way I felt I was being slick about it. Meaning, I had this knack for being able to pass tests. Like, so I can pass the class, I could pass the test. I would come home and like study, but I wouldn't do no work. I wouldn't do any like assignments. I wouldn't do no homework. I act up in class. You know, there's things that had happened between junior high school and high school that sort of like shifted me. So for two things. 14-1, I was like jumped really badly in a high school. Kids trying to rob me and some other guys, and I didn't run when other guys ran, and so I was the last one standing, and they jumped me. They tried to rob me for whatever I had in my pocket. And they beat me real bad. I was out of school for a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months behind it. And then a couple months after that, you know, I talk about it now, it's still not easy, but I was raped at gunpoint. So like that thing, when those two things happened to me, and there was some others, you know, it's like, so let me say this, right? Right now I just said something like extremely huge, and I just sort of like ran through it.
Yes.
So like when that happened, it's somebody I didn't know, somebody that's kind of like cajoled me into going someplace with them in Manhattan, and ended up being something like, you know, it could have been a lot worse than it was, but it was bad in and of itself. And I didn't, you know, at 14, I didn't tell nobody about it for many reasons. One of the reasons at the time, you know, being very homophobic at the time, it's like if I tell people this, people gonna think I'm gay, right? So I was like, first of all, so I can't tell nobody about it. And then also I'm like, well, people gonna think like you saw how you let somebody like do that. You know, 14 years old, that's how I was thinking. So I told nobody about it up until years later when I was inside. I had told my pops. So that event and the other things that were happening, the robbery and all that sort of stuff, have put me in a place of like, this nerdy kid, Jehovah's Witness shit ain't working for me. Like it's saying he ain't protecting me like he said he could protect me, talking about God. And like I ain't doing nothing bad for these things that happen to me, so why is like they happen to me? I'm doing good, like I'm out here, I'm trying to preach, save the world and all that sort of stuff. Being a good kid generally, pretty much a good kid, and it ain't working. So I was like, this is not protecting me. So I need to figure out ways to fit in. And I started hanging out more on the block in my neighborhood. So, you know, I'm also...
And you think that, and you did that immediately after those things happened?
I made a conscious decision that, I mean, it didn't happen overnight where I become I didn't intend on becoming a bad student. Right? It's just that I started acting out more. Right? And you start acting out more, and that takes up time from paying attention and being a certain type of person in class. I made a conscious decision, like I'm I'm gonna loosen this up. Like, you know, I'm gonna take off this
Right.
tie.
Right.
You know, and slowly it was a slow decline. Like as a kid, 15, I'm out on the block smoking, obviously hiding from my family and all that sort of stuff. And then, you know, smoking in them days as a kid, it ain't like this dispensary like beautiful thing now, how it is now, right?
Yeah.
It's like
it's not controlled. It's
it puts you in a criminal element,
right.
right? It puts you in a criminal state of mind because I'm doing this thing is illegal. So it puts you in a certain type of mind, and then it puts you around certain elements of people.
Right.
So that gradually led into me being around people who were really hang with people who was like, you know, straight up drug dealers and gun dealers. And I was around with guns, and then I would end up having guns and all these sort of things. And really not, in a way, still somewhat hiding it from my family. Like they knew I was outside, but they didn't know what the gravity of people I was getting into. So I mean, if you saw me at 7 and saw me at 17, you could probably see two different people.
Wow. So then, okay, so tell me now, how do you find yourself in a position of committing a crime at 19?
Yeah, 1999, I was 19 years old, and my part of me is like, I'm getting my life together. Like I'm trying not just to be hanging out on the block, doing nothing. So I had enrolled in school, a trade school, but I would still hang out. Like I go to class all day, still come back on the block later and hang out. And how easy to get caught up in things. I actually came from school one day, and two of my boys was outside on the block. I could see them from my window, and they were just hanging out. Like, you know, we kill some time, go outside. So I'm outside kicking with them, and they was like, yeah, we about to case a joint, case a store. And I'm like, what you mean case a store? Like, about to case a store, like to rob the store. And I'm like, word? And I was like, you call it silly, you call it stupid, you could call it, I don't know, but I was like, all right, let's go. I'm gonna come with y'all. And we go to Manhattan, and you know, one of the guys with us actually go cases the joint. Me and the other person will actually go out. We stay in the train station while the other person cases it. And
so casing means what?
Oh, right. See, casing means you just like go scope out the scenes.
Oh, okay.
And you know, I guess look at the scene, and
right,
the store and the area and whatnot. So we did that. One of the guys did that. And we come back to Brooklyn that evening, and they're like, you know, decide they're gonna do it on Wednesday. And at the time, I still wasn't necessarily a part of it, right? I just went along for the, you know, just for that. But I said, I was like, yo, if y'all need any help, let me know. Another dude calls me, who's like a part of this group of people, but he don't usually call me. He's like, come to the house. So I'm like, all right, I'm come to the house. So I go up there, just after school, mind you, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And he's like, yo, come to the back of the house. Come to the back of the house, and it's who would be the people that would end up robbing the store. Yeah, and I was a lookout. He's like, you'll be a lookout. And initially, I was like, am I gonna have a gun? And he's like, nah, you don't need a gun. And you just be across the street and just look out for anything that's strange. Literally, as I walk up to the apartment, they were about to leave. So it's kind of like they were about to leave me. I like, don't leave me. I jump in the car, and we packed in this car on our way to Manhattan, and it's like the longest ride to Manhattan ever. And be clear, it usually shouldn't take no more than about 20 minutes to get to Manhattan. And it felt like the longest ride in Manhattan. I remember Hot 97 playing on the radio, and all of us in the car are quiet. Nobody is talking to each other. All these guys in the car, nobody's talking. And in hindsight, I realized everybody was scared, or probably wanted to not do it, but nobody had the courage to say anything. And we drive to Manhattan, and you know, we get out the car, and you know, I go where, you know, I was supposed to go, across the street from the store, and you know, a couple of guys go inside the store to rob it, and no more than a minute, literally. A minute might be exaggerating. I just hear gunshots ring out, like a bunch of gunshots ring out, and I start seeing people running all over the streets. Like it's me. I mean, it's like 5 in the afternoon. People, it was a cafe, so you know, people in there working. I could be anybody, could be me, you, now, and I see all the mayhem going on, and I get scared, and I just decide to go home. I walk where everybody walk. I walk to the train station, come home. And I come home, I look on the news, bang, special report. And then, you know, I found out that 2 people were killed.
So at that point in time, what did you think?
My first concern was, because on the news you also see 2 of the guys I was with, like, they arrested them. They was on front on the television. So my first concern was like them. And then for one of the guys, I was cool with one of the guys who was arrested at the scene. And my concerns for him and his family, honestly, I was like, because his family found out they were all destroyed, and I was more playing like the comforter to his family, not thinking that I was,
right.
Like I think nobody was looking for me. So I went to school the next day.
You didn't think anybody was looking for you because
I didn't think that I did anything.
Right.
I didn't think I did. I think I just went, but I ain't go inside no store. I ain't pull no weapon out of nobody. I ain't do nothing. I never even walked inside the store, so I don't even know, what would happen in there. I still to this day don't actually. I mean, I know people too were shot. I know I saw the autopsy, but I have no idea like why did that happen.
Right.
Friday night, his family, one of the guys' family, we're all tight, all Trini, we're all cool, and I would often like hang out there, spend the night there, because they had kids of my age. And I remember it was maybe like 5 in the morning. I woke up. I just fell asleep on a chair next to one of the kids' bed, and I woke up. I was like, oh damn, let me go home watch him. And I'm going upstairs. And as soon as I come out my elevator, there's a detective, a bunch of detectives in my hallway on the 6th floor. And it's also my family. Apparently, there was in my parents' apartment, looking for me, and I get arrested right there. 3 days. That's 3 days after the crime happened.
So when you saw them, you knew?
I don't know. I knew they was coming for this, but I didn't think that it was that serious. Like they were gonna charge me with anything really. Cause like, I didn't do anything.
Right.
That's ignorance of the law, obviously too.
Right. So they come, they pick you up, and you go to the station. So
not immediately. They come pick me up, and then they take me under a bridge. I didn't realize the bridge was until I came home from prison, but it was the Manhattan Bridge. Parked up there, and they was trying to get me to confess something. So they would come in there, cursing, yelling me out. One person would come in the car, next one would come out. They would just kept doing this for a while. Kept trying to get me to say something. All I can remember saying, this is why I remember like when they see us.
Right.
I remember Yusuf saying, I just want to go home. I just want to go home. I just want to go home. And it's like, you're gonna go home. Don't worry, you're gonna go home. But just tell us da 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 da. And I was like, I just saying, I just want to go home. I don't know what you want to know. Like I recall saying, whatever you want to know is on TV. All I know is on TV. So they take me to the interrogation room, and this once again, just trying to get me to confess ultimately. And eventually I confessed. I put myself at the scene of the crime. I said I didn't do anything, but I was there. And I come to find out that's enough to make me complicit in the crime. And then from then on, I was charged with first-degree murder. I never got bail, so I spent almost 3 years pre-trial, remand. First offer they gave me was 40 years. And they gave me 40 years, they offered me 40 years if I would like testify against everybody. And then eventually the offer went down to 35, then he went down to 20, when they went down to 15, then he went back up to 25 years to life. And then eventually, then he went to 12 to life. And then almost 3 years later, they went down to 12. And the thing that made me take the plea, honestly, was a conversation with my father. I had a different attorney at this time, and he had asked the judge if I could speak to my father in the courtroom. So they allowed him. I remember my father saying to me, he was like, I know this is hard, but if you don't take this, I don't know if I'll ever see you again. Because I won't be here 25 years from now. I mean, I'll be here 30, 40, 50 years from now if you get 50 years. And 50 years is realistic because my co-defendant had gotten 50 years. I had another co-defendant that got 45 years by that time. So, that was realistic for me, that if I went to trial, it was not like, if I went to trial, I was facing enough time to get life in prison.
What was it like the first day in prison? What was it like?
Like the first day I got locked up, or like the first day? I felt almost delusional, literally. I couldn't make sense of what was happening. It felt like it was happening so like all these, in 1 minute I'm home, and next thing I'm in jail. I had never like been in that type of situation. I had no like frame of reference for like older cousin, older brother. I remember when he did that. Like, I had nothing that. And it felt scary. You would hear other people talking about, yeah, man, I might be facing like 6 months. You might try to keep me here for 2 months or 2 weeks or whatever. And somebody might keep me for a year. And I remember one guy asking me like, what you facing? I said, murder. He said, oh, and he literally just walked away from me. And it was hard. It was scary.
So you spent 3 years on remand, and then you go upstate. So what is the difference? What is that like?
Upstate, I was ready. By the time I had got sentenced, I was ready to get this bid going.
Right.
I pretty much understood how to jail, and we call that a term. You know how to jail. Like, you know how to
what does that mean? What is knowing how to jail?
You know how to.
What is the rhythm? What is the day to day? What is it?
You know that you have to become accustomed with uncertainty of not knowing what happens next. You figure out how to ration food. You figure out you know almost instinctively how to manage every interaction with a person.
Okay.
And how to, in this day and age, like, download as much as you can about this person who just walked in the room or whatever it is. Try to learn as much about them and figure out as much as you can about them before there's an interaction, because you don't know what can lie behind any conversation.
So what was your place? How did you fall in to this system at this point where you're knowing how to jail?
One of the things I knew how to do, I figured out how to release stress when I was playing basketball. Mm-hmm. So I would be on my day, like in the housing unit, I was super quiet. Mm-hmm. I didn't really rock with nobody too tight. I wouldn't play no card games necessary with people. I wouldn't joke. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't joke around with nobody about anything. I wasn't smoking, so nobody could like interact with me in that way.
But even in that, because like you watch TV, is that if you're not a part of something, then you still become a target because it's.
Yeah, I mean, I was blessed. I mean, I was never really a target of anybody. For me, I had to figure out who I was really fast. Like, who am I at my core as a person, right? Because it helped me. I had to figure out like what got me to prison. Besides like the crime itself, I kind of figured out really fast what got me to prison was me like shifting who this type of person, becoming or trying to become somebody I wasn't, or like we might talk not keeping it real or not keeping it real with yourself. And I was like, this is the thing that got me into trouble. I can't act like I'm just somebody else. So you got to be who you are. So if you just who you know yourself to be at the core. So if you're this person like you like reading and writing and all that, I could find little books wherever there was a book to read. I got note papers from the commissary, so I would write. That's when I started writing in my journal. I would write a lot. And I think, and I was also one of the youngest people in the housing unit for the most of those years, the early years, the youngest person. I think people saw, people that have an entryway to me, that people want an entry into you. Meaning like, what is his thing? What is his vice? What is his thing that he's into that we can interact on and that potentially manipulate or what have you, right? And I was very keen about that. So that's why I wasn't like having conversations with people about things like personal life or jokes or anything like that. I would talk to like people about maybe if I was reading this thing, this book or something. At the time, I started reading the Bible a lot more. So I'll talk to somebody about, I wouldn't even talk about the Bible. I'll just like have it out in a place visible around me so people would know that like,
this is what you're about.
This is what I'm about. And it repelled some people. And that's what I wanted. I sure as hell want to repel people because I was scared. Be clear, I was scared. But here's the thing, Leah. I also realized that I developed, this is something I'm also unlearning, but I developed this way of living that was zero sum. Meaning that if I'm going to get into argument with somebody, I know that one of our lives could end.
Right.
And right? For me, it was like there can't be no middle ground. Like, so which means that if I'm going to get into an argument with somebody, understanding this could be your life or that person's.
Right. So, inside of prison.
Inside of prison.
So you spend years, 10 years in prison. I cannot imagine, you just described to me a night, then you described after a couple months, then you described after a couple of years, and then, you go into sentence. I can't imagine that, but how do you pass time? How do you know time? How do you spend 10 years in prison?
The human mind is powerful. That's one thing to learn is you will figure it out. For me, there was a regimen of working out became a part of it, but also working my mind out. Initially, the first couple of years, honestly, I was raised a Jehovah's Witness. During my teenage years, I went away from it and didn't care about it at all. So for years, I hadn't studied or read a book or in the Bible or none of that stuff. And the impact of the incarceration I was facing, God help me, somebody save me. So you go back to what you know, and I went back to the Bible much more serious, even more serious than I was a kid. So a lot of my time, really, I read the Bible 3 times in prison, in its entirety, and I even studied each book. And through Jehovah's Witnesses, there's books that are associated with the Bible that you read and study and help you as Bible aids. So I was really into it. I occupied my time, and it was refreshing though, because it gave me a level of hope that I didn't have.
And that's what I was going to ask you. How did you also keep hope?
Yeah, it gave me a level of hope, and that if I died here, the teachings of the Bible, at least the Jehovah's Witnesses, that you get to live again, be resurrected, and so that was part of the zero-sum too. Also, that I know if something happens to me, if I have to kill someone, and it's being very honest, or somebody kills me, there's that hope, right? And the other thing was writing to myself. The journal played a huge role in helping me. I talk about that a lot. It's like a place of refuge for me, writing in my journal. And then whenever I got a visit, whether it be from, mainly the only people that really visited me was my parents and my siblings. Nobody else really visited, no one regularly. I didn't have no girlfriend or nothing like that at the time, so I didn't have none of those. And that also helped, be honest with you, that I didn't, because if you're inside, you can write, and people create these romantic relationships all the time. I was intentional about not wanting to have anybody.
Why?
Because I didn't want to have to, in my mind, I didn't want to worry about a girlfriend, right? I needed to focus on prison. I needed to focus on prison. Listen to music. Music was my saving grace.
Wow. What's your favorite?
Oh, I got my photo album. I have a photo album from prison, and I have the album covers that got me through prison.
Wow.
So the album covers that got me through is Bob Marley Legend album, Lauryn Hill, Miseducated, Jay-Z's Reasonable Doubt, Alicia Keys' first and second album, Jill Scott's first album, Vivian Green had an album. Those are the albums that had got me. I listened to other things, but those are the main albums that got me through the bid that I listened to over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. At some point, somebody says there's this program in the prison called YAP. It stands for Youth Assistance Program. So it's where young people from outside, whatever, can come to the prison and guys work with them. Not scared straight, not yelling at them and all that sort of stuff. A different approach. So I had a homeboy that they would, the people who are part of this team, the guys inside, they would meet in a room. We call it a call out. That's a prison term, a call out, prison term, a call out. Where if you had a program or you had a religious service, you got to be on a call out. So they let you out yourself to go to that particular room. So he put me on a call out to go to this yacht preparation program. And I'm thinking it's about young folks. A bunch of guys in the room, and they talking about men's health and parenting and African history and relationships. And I'm like, what's this? And it was the first time I had thought about stuff outside the religious spectrum inside. Not too long after that, maybe a year later, I get a letter in the mail. A letter in the mail from a friend of mine. Since I talked about this morning on the TED Talk, and she's like, yeah, I'm a teacher, and I want you to write to my kids. And that was profound to me. I was like, wow. First, my initial reaction, forgetting about what I had sort of manifested. You were talking about manifesting. I was like, why does she want me to write these kids? I'm in prison. I ain't no I was like, I ain't no Mia Abu Jamal. I'm not no Martin Luther King in jail. I ain't Malcolm. I ain't none of these. I'm balling. It was just, got caught up in this thing. Anyway, I ended up doing that, writing letters, writing to the kids, and when they all wrote me back, I was in a different prison at the time. I had a cellmate, and I remember getting the letters back from these kids, and a tear dry. I was like, oh shoot, they wrote me these letters. And that ended up being a program where we, started doing that. She would send me books to learn how to create curriculum. So I would create a curriculum along with letters, and that went back and forth for about a year or so.
And do you feel like that gave you...
That changed my entire trajectory.
Wow.
That changed my entire trajectory because I didn't see what else. I was like, I'm trying to become an electrician. My brother's an electrician, which is fine, which is good, obviously. But that's all I saw. And plus, you know, you hear the stories about like when you come home from prison, you can't do this, you can't do that. You definitely can't work with no young people. In my mind, like you got a felony, right? And I was like, oh wow. First of all, these kids, I mattered to somebody outside of my parents and my siblings. Like, oh wow, people care to hear what I gotta say. And I decided to do college. They didn't offer college in the prison. I had to do it through mail. I had to pay for it on my own. I got an associate's degree on criminal justice when I was there.
So you started building for something.
I started building for something. But this is also when I say I know how to jail.
Right.
I also understood how to do prison now.
Right.
The human mind is amazing. And despite all the stuff you got to deal with, and there's so many things I can tell you about all the powers of experience. But you learn how to occupy yourself.
So, and I wanted to ask you this. Tell me about because you're in prison, so your physical freedom is taken away from you. So the only thing you have is your mental. So tell me about your thoughts on that, physical and mental freedom.
I had to protect that. I had to protect the little mental freedom that I could find, whether through all the reading and writing. That's why I would write. That's where I developed the love of writing. I would put on music, block it out, everybody else, all the nonsense going on around me, and I could like write, and I protected my mental, my sanity. I mean, you have to work on your sanity, and I've worked hard to like maintain sanity. So which is why I didn't get involved with certain conversations or certain activities. So I was like, not that they bad or anything like that, but I just know that I need to protect myself.
You needed a focus.
I need to focus on different things.
So tell me, what was the toughest lesson of prison?
I think the toughest lesson of prison I've learned just recently. What worked for me in prison doesn't work for me out here. Go into every conversation or even like relationships, no matter what type of relationships they are, that you can't be as self-protective. Right? You can't be as that worked for prison. It worked, and I would suggest if you got people in prison, like they need to figure out how to be self-protective, right? But you have to unlearn some of that stuff. It doesn't work
For every situation.
It doesn't work for every situation. What prison requires that you do is create a lot of walls. You got to create borders all around yourself at all points in time, and that doesn't work. You don't need to do that out here. Let me just say it doesn't work. It may work for some people. I'm saying I don't think I need to be creating those sort of walls around because I'm no longer in prison. That's one of the toughest lessons I've learned, that what worked for me in prison doesn't work out here. So the biggest lesson I learned while in prison is that people are beautiful. I've learned that people are so amazing and beautiful. Like that's why I developed more so my like love for people, is that I understood people for more than what they did. Like I knew people did everything. Think of a crime, and I know that person, right? I did a decade in maximum security. I've seen every type of person. I understand the backstory. Like they fathers and their sons, and they got mental health issues, they got drug issues, or they scared to ask a girl if she want to come visit them, or right, like they got, can you write me a letter to my girlfriend? Like all these sort of like these are people things, right? They like Jeopardies. You know what I mean? Like you don't, and they cry off us over stuff, and but that helped me to see how beautiful people are and the possibilities in people, and that people are all dealing with a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? They may not be dealing with the same stuff, but we're all dealing with a lot of stuff. And the other thing is, honestly, is that prison is one of the worst productions of humans. It's a remnant of our capability for savagery. We haven't evolved beyond a solution of dealing with human tragedies with another tragedy. Because prison breaks more than it builds by far. That's the intention of prison, is to break you.
And that's a lot of what your program is about now.
Yeah, I mean the podcast. Yeah, I mean all the work I've done, whether it be in a podcast, whether it be in the presidential show, it's about uplifting that point that we have to think more creative, more creative than where we at right now. You don't deal with broken human beings by breaking them.
Right.
Right? Prison, people commit crimes. Most people commit whatever type of crime it is because they're in a bad place. Financially, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, they're not in a good place, whether it be for that moment or in a period of years. They're not in a good place. And you throw them into a place that's meant to break you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And so essentially, it doesn't prepare, especially for those who have a certain amount of time, it doesn't prepare them to re-emerge into the world.
No, of course not. I mean, you're in a cage. You're in a cage. I mean, like, don't go in a cage and just know that that's where you're going to be. You'll eventually adjust to being in the cage, no question. You can't divorce that experience from the trauma that will come along with that experience. That's why I always say that I'm very reluctant to saying like prison saved me. Right? You asked me that question before, like the prison saved me. I'm reluctant to give credit to prison. One is that it removes the agency from myself. Like I had to, as within me, I made the decision to be intentional and all these sort of things. But I also know that so many times I butted heads with prison. Prison tried to break me. I don't mean that. I don't mean that figuratively. Prison tried to break me. You know what I mean? And I don't want to give my abuser credit. You know what I mean? I appreciate what I was able to learn from the experience. The people I was able to meet. Right? It informs who I am today. It informs the work that I do. And it's what gives me this unique perspective on the world.
You spent 10 years. Throughout that period of time, you learn how to prison. You find yourself in a program of communicating with the outside world by giving back positively, and then you develop a mission, and then you finally come out, right? It's your last day and you're coming out. Did you have expectations? Did you have a plan?
I had a plan. I knew I wanted to go back to school. I wanted to go to school again. Like get another degree. I knew I wanted to do that. Wasn't planning sure how, but I know I wanted to do that.
I know you had a plan, you wanted to go back to school, etc. But what was that period immediately after? So you described adjusting into prison. How did you adjust out of prison? What was different in terms of sights, smells, sounds?
Yeah, you know, it was funny. We came back to Brooklyn, and I don't know, it was a long time since I had seen streets like that. And everything looks smaller in a way. I mean, I guess because in prison, all these buildings are so big. I mean, these big halls, the housing units tall and high gates. And it's like, oh, these apartment buildings are not so tall. You just have to like readjust to that. I think from my neighborhood, I've seen white people in my neighborhood that was like, wow, like that was blowing me away. It's interesting though. I did not have some of the things that other people have, where like being in groups of people, being on the subway or the bus feeling nervous. I didn't have any of that. I was fine. My nephew, would thank him so much. He helped me out. Like he would take me around, help me know how to use Metro cards and all those sort of things. And I had to readjust like what traveling on the subway was like. And he helped me, took me to do all those things with me. It really helped me out with that stuff. But it felt good to be in the house, open the fridge door and get, juice and all that sort of stuff. It felt good to sleep in I had initially, they had a mattress, right? They had a mattress in a room. So I was happy. That was enough for me, a mattress on the floor, but that was enough. More than enough. It felt good. I didn't feel nervous. I didn't feel, I felt like I just felt right back in to like being out here in that way. I didn't have some of the adjustment issues that some people had. I think because I was doing a lot of ways I was communicating with the outside world a lot. So that helped. So I wasn't shell shocked by a lot of things. And I also had part of my plan too was like, they had different volunteers that had came into the prison over the years, or people who ran programs or whatever. And I had gotten like a whole book. I still have it. It's actually my parents' house. All the numbers I needed to like call or people I needed to hit up. And that was my job until I found a job. Like I would just like every day try to connect with people. A lot of people who weren't around or whatever, but like a few were. And connecting with people. I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to work and do. My first job, thankfully, I was like telemarketing. I hated it. I hated it. I still do. But it was a job that paid me a low check, gave me some place to be. So a month after I came home, that same teacher who I was doing the program with, she was now an assistant principal at a different school with middle schoolers, and she brokered a meeting with me and her principal. And a month after I was home, I had my own group. And I had my own class. Like with the boys who were the most challenging in that school in Brownsville. And in the afternoon on that Friday mornings with the boys, I had a group with my boys. Afternoon, I volunteered for this organization that did work between criminal justice and immigration. So that was my Fridays, and then my other days I would go to do the telemarketing, and I had curfew and parole and all that other stuff too. But that occupied my time.
I'm seeing right here on the wall, there's New York University, there's Ashworth College. So you went back to school.
Yeah, so I got a bachelor's degree at NYU, a degree. NYU, like, who would have thought I would be in that school like that? It's funny how I got into NYU, or even consider that, because I want to go to school. My first thing was that I would go to, like, in New York City, public colleges or community schools. And I was like, that's all I knew. I had never thought about, like, these big schools. It just didn't seem like it was for me. Like, it was not I just never saw myself in a place like that.
Right.
I remember I had a friend, and she was applying to Columbia. I had seen on a laptop, she was applying to Columbia. And I was like, you going there? And I was like, she's like, yeah, why you don't apply? I was like, nah, I can't. How am I gonna apply to that? Like, me? First of all, where am I gonna get the money from? I went to jail. Like, all that other stuff, right? She's like, just look on the website. So I looked on their website. I looked on the NYU. I said, okay, well, let me see some other stuff. I went to an open house for NYU. I was like, oh, you really just apply? Like, you just apply, do an essay or two or whatever. And I got into there. I got into another school upstate. I ended up going to NYU.
And so now I want to fast forward, like, now to 39 years old, right? 10 years in, 10 years out.
That's right.
You've done a lot of great work. You've been recognized now. You've put your mission in motion through your podcast, through the presidential group, through speaking, TED Talks, conferences, etc. Is there anything that at 39, after having gone almost 10 years, that you still struggle with, that still haunts you?
Yeah, hell yeah.
On a daily basis. And how do you deal with that?
I think the thing that I told you about before, I said about unlearning and the walls, is that therapy has helped us. Is one of the things I remember she had said to me. She was like, when somebody loses a loved one, there's a mourning period that you go through. And of course, we're all aware of that. And she said, when you were gone, you lost something. You lost a decade of your life. She asked me, do you ever mourn that? I was just like, that was profound to me. I was like, I came home running. I came home, school. I started 2 youth programs. I was doing a bunch of stuff, right? And so, like, professionally, even privately, you know what I mean? I had a mission, I had goals, I was checking them all. I need to do this, I need to do that. So
you were doing a lot.
Right, but avoiding that there was some things I had to unlearn about prison, and even prior to prison too. And part of that most of those things were in the realm of, like, personal feelings and personal relationships, honestly. And I would come into a relationship not willing to disclose or expose a certain level of myself, but not to that next level, which, if you're in a relationship with somebody after a period of time, there's deeper and deeper levels in which you learn about each other. And I think I would be able to hide behind some of my professional accomplishments or my public-facing character, and I wasn't dealing with some of the ways in which There were things about prison I needed to unlearn. But it was also that I needed to accept that I was there. I was away, and there's something that you just missed. And it was 10 years out.
Who are you now? Because you've gone through therapy at some, and it seems like you've had some measure of processing. So where are you now, emotionally?
Yeah, I'm in a place of like very being truthful with myself. But like last year was probably the hardest year I've had since prison, emotionally. And it was just like a lot of personal things I was dealing with. And also I'm in the process of writing this book, and it was like bringing up a lot of things there that I hadn't really thought about and hadn't dealt with. And I was just lying to myself about something. I was lying to other people. And that don't sit well with me, and that put me in a state of depression. I mean, I went through it last year. I mean, I went through a tough period of time. I had suicidal ideations last year. A lot of things. Last year was a tough year. And
so how did you overcome?
Well, therapy has helped. It's helped out a lot. And having more honest conversations with people who I haven't been having honest conversations with has helped out a lot. Like develop different routines. I've developed healthy, just personal habits. One of the things I wasn't doing was taking care of myself, like physically in terms of eating. I had this thing where I was, but like I would like not just eat, not because I was on some diet or nothing. I'd be like, I can eat later, and next thing you know, it's 5 in the evening. I'm like, oh shit, I ain't eating nothing today, right? And then like, I wouldn't fill up my fridge. I'd be like, I can find something to eat. And those are unhealthy habits. I'm not taking care of myself. I'm not taking care of myself physically. That's saying something about me, right? I'm not prioritizing my own body. The only thing I have that I own, in a sense, right? So I don't like going long without eating. I'm buying this, and I do different activities. I did like hot yoga. I did this float tank. You ever heard of float tank?
Yes, I did it too.
I did that too. I'm also just like exploring things too, and that's good, right? It's good for me.
At 39 now, 10 years in, 10 years out, what is your purpose on this earth?
My purpose on this earth is to inspire people.
Yeah. What do you think about forgiveness?
Forgiveness to me is an ongoing process, particularly personal forgiveness. Part of it is it's a release. I think for me it's a release to be able to forgive myself for some things, decisions. But it's also any type of forgiveness is about the personal. So like even for people who have it wrong me, it can be family or otherwise. Like forgiveness, I'm not trying to seek any. We would like some change in the character of that person, but it's not really about that person. Forgiveness is also, I think, accepting people for who they are at that point. Forgiveness also, let me say this, Leah. Forgiveness is also being honest. I said to you before, it's being honest about what you think your culpability is in things. And for me, I think there's some things I felt like I needed forgiveness for that I really didn't, I'm not responsible of.
Right. Yeah. Do you feel like you had to atone?
Yeah, hell yeah. Yes. Atonement is important. Atonement also leaves you opportunity to start again. So yeah, no question.
Did you seek it from the family of, or the affected persons?
I tried. She has said no. She said she has seen me. She knows of me. She's seen me speak or seen my work, and she says it was told to me that she doesn't believe it. She doesn't.
How does that make you feel?
It made me feel really. That's the part that also happened last year, and it made me feel really bad, really bad. But I had to understand that I had to come to grips that that's about her. That's her. Whatever she's seeing or feeling, that's about her. It's not me. I know who I am. Yeah, but it did bother me that I wasn't able to. I'll try again.
Do you think you need it?
No. No, I don't think I need it. I don't think I need it. I think it's a process of, if they would want it, first of all, because what I want may not be what they want. They may not be like, I don't want to deal with this, I don't want to revisit this, I don't want to talk to you, whatever, and that's fine for them. And I don't need it for any sort of progress in my own life.
Right.
I think that I just want to be able to try.
Right. What does love mean to you?
Go in there.
We go in there.
To me, love means a personal commitment to truth, whether it's love of self or love of another person. And a commitment to it. Like, you gotta be committed to it. Whether the truth is with yourself or to that person, or y'all committed to each other. Whatever that looks like. But I think for me, love to me is a commitment to truth, because truth is the safest place. I've always been in a place trying to be safe. I've had a lot of periods of unsafety. So for me, it's all relatively recent sort of understandings. That to me, love is a commitment to truth, right? Because that's safe, that's peace. Like, you want to be in alignment with peace. When you're in alignment with peace, you're able to understand what's being communicated to you in different ways.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
I want to have a house somewhere. I'd like to have a family. I like to have at least two books out that I did really well, that really have impact on young people particularly. That's why the commitment to truth is so important to me, because it's a responsibility. Like, any accolade I might get or whatever it might be, I'm happy for them, thankful. But so I'm also aware there's responsibilities with that.
What do you think is important for people to know?
It's important for people to know how powerful they are. That I think you can create stuff. It used to sound weird to me when people used to say to me, but you can create stuff. It's kind of like, so I'm no longer religious, right? Those days are past. But I believe the Bible is a powerful book, right? And I don't want to. One of the biggest phrases in the Bible, people say that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, right? Or was a God, or whatever. And then everything we created this, that, and the third. What I also get from that, and Jesus Christ came to the earth as the Word of God. There's something about our ability to manifest what we say. We say something, it can happen. The power in our words and our thoughts, them joints is real. They're like entities, they're organisms almost in themselves. Many times we think about bad shit, and the bad shit happens to us. You know what I mean?
Right. So we're powerful in manifesting positive, but we're also powerful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When all of us say, as black men growing up in the hood, when we be like, I don't think I'm gonna make it to 21, part of it's from what we've seen around us, and that's where it's informed from, but a lot of us don't make it.
Right.
Either we die, we end up getting closer down, we go to jail. Part of it is, there are systems that are definitely in cahoots with that, right? But it's also a part of us that is manifesting that outcome based on the abundance of information that we're getting that's saying, like, this is what your end game is, and we internalize it, and it becomes our outcome. So when I was 18, I said to my sister, Kelly, I don't think I'm gonna make it to 21. I just felt that. It was just this energy around me. I was like, I don't think I'm gonna make it. And look what happened. I ended up going to jail, facing life in prison. So I didn't get killed. I got close. I got shot, but I didn't, but I went to jail and faced life a year after I said that to my sister.
What do you want to be remembered for?
I don't know, that I cared. That I cared, and I like to have fun. Marlon cared, and he liked to have fun.
What is something that, like a quirk or a thing about you, that someone would not know unless they lived with you?
Oh wow! Oh shit. I like putting ice in my cereal.
What?
If you ever see me eat ice, eat cereal, I put 2 blocks of ice in the cereal.
¿Por qué? Why?
It happens. That's what I missed about prison, because you didn't have access to ice. Right. So that's one people don't think, well, you have access to ice. So I could not wait till I came home and put some ice in my cereal.
Are there any parting words or anything that you feel profoundly on your heart, where you've come from and where you're going, that you just want to put out in this space for anybody watching in this moment in time?
Yeah, thank you. If there's one thing consistent about time, is that it moves on. And what you're dealing with, you don't have to continue to deal with all the time. Meaning, the situation might not change, but your approach to the situation could change. Figured out what I need to learn from everything. I may not have figured out while I was going through the thing, or learned it while I was going through the thing, but I do know that every experience I've had, even when I was a little bit younger, I've tried to figure out what I needed to learn from it, no matter how bad it was, or how good it was. Also the good ones, like what you need to learn from the good experiences too, because you want to recreate those. The other thing is that I want a big life, and I get to say that. You know what I mean, that's something I wasn't always able to say when, definitely didn't feel it was possible. Definitely also the next stage was, I don't know if I want to say that. Is that selfish and all those different things? I want a big life. I want a life that is abundant. Everything about this abundance, about this planet LEAH, is about abundance. It's models of abundance. There's abundance of water. There's when you fly, look at this expanse. Everything is abundance. Our smallness of human minds are sometimes so small that we only see scarcity. Right. And I'm saying I want to always find the abundance in everything. Abundance in love, abundance in life, abundance in fun, all that. So yeah, I mean, I'm here for a reason. That's also part of it. It's not only just to be able to be in service of each other, of others, but it's also to be in service of myself.
What are the words of maybe the song that impacts you the most, that you can leave in this space?
Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. And that's from Bob Marley.
From Bob Marley.
Redemption song.
That's pretty amazing. Thank you.
If you liked our episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button below, like, share, and comment.